Jared led a young birder field trip with 16
Yeah,
young
16
people that
birders yesterday.
too intimidated to be with the more experienced birders or people with high, expensive equipment. And you loaned out how many pairs of binoculars?
12 pairs of binoculars were loaned. There were some like John that brought their own. But yeah, it was a great success.
And beginning birding classes that's taking place, and lots of field trips. And
yeah, all week we'll be at Pine Creek Access with rotating groups of fifth graders. It's going to be really awesome. They do this canoe mobile thing every year where they take groups of kids out on canoes, and while some people are on canoes on Pine Creek, we take them out birding, give them a pair of binoculars, show them how to use them, and try and connect them with the ecosystem a little bit. And yeah, so we'll be doing that.
So lots of exciting stuff going on, and your support helps fund that. So we're definitely in a period of growth with AltaCal, and thank you. You're holding we're definitely in a period of growth, and it's great to work with you, all the volunteers and the paid staff. So welcome. Thanks for coming, and field trips.
And speaking of membership, we do have membership cards and envelopes to that back table right next to the newsletter. So grab a newsletter, grab a membership card if you don't have one already.
All right, field trips. We've got 4 coming up in May, and May 2nd is the Turtle Bay field trip in Ready. And Joyce Bond is the field trip leader along with Lorraine Smith. And it's one not to miss. They did it last year. It was really popular. I'm gonna miss it, unfortunately. But
do you think they might do it next year then hopefully?
Say that again.
Do you think they might do next year because I can't go either?
This year, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. I never know. Now, our first Saturday field trips, there's a change from what's in the newsletter. In the newsletter, it says Pine Creek Access, but it's going to be at the Yanni Trail. And that's Saturday, May 4th. We'll have a beginning birding at 5 Mile with myself and Karen White will be leading that trip. And then Slacker Saturday with Skip Hogger. He's going to be at the Pine Creek View. Now, mark your calendars too, because in June, and we'll have these dates out on the AltaCal calendar. That's usually where the dates are. The earliest is on the calendar. We're going to have 2 camping trips in Mount Lassen, one in June and one in July. Jennifer Patton and I will be leading we're partnering with Mount Lassen to lead a field trip there. And then in July, we're going to do our group camping with birding. So 2 camping trips. And yeah, come on out. We have a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Karen. So without further ado, tonight we have John Whittlesey coming to present about living with and learning about bumblebees. John will share his photos taken over the last 8 years, as well as sharing his property with 6 species of bumblebees, weaving a discussion of their life history along with anecdotes of living with bumblebees, ending the talk with plants to plant if you'd like to invite them into your garden. John Whittlesey is a nurseryman, garden designer, and author who spent the last 10 years designing and installing climate-appropriate gardens to attract wildlife into the garden. He's a strong believer that we become more connected to our gardens when our gardens become more than just pretty places, but rather vibrant habitats where birds and insects thrive. Being semi-retired, he can now spend more time on a 10-acre homestead, enjoying the richness around, photographing, celebrating, and sharing this diversity with others. So, John, why don't you come on up and share?
Yeah. Maybe not semi-retired. I'm trying to make that totally retired. Trying to do the best I can. So it's really nice to be here tonight to talk about bumblebees, which is a passion of mine. You can tell. And I just want to share. Yeah, we have a lot of species, a lot of bumblebees on the property. So I'm going to share that with a little bit, throwing in natural history and the life cycle of bumblebees, and just kind of get going and see if everything works. Oh, okay, well, we're getting there. Okay, we'll figure it out. So just some facts about bumblebees. Bombus is the genus name, the order Hymenoptera, the family. Worldwide, there are roughly 20,000 species of bees. 250 of which are bumblebees. In the US, 4,000 native bees, 49 of these roughly are bumblebees. And in California, 1,600 native bees. California's a hot spot for the diversity of habitats for a lot of native bees. And we have 25, 26, 27 native bumblebees. Bumblebees prefer to live in temperate climates. They don't like heat particularly. You're not going to find them down in the desert. You can find them more in mountainous areas, coastal. And as an example, there's 22 species in Alaska. So that tells you something right there that they are hardy critters. So bumblebees, honeybees, the majority of bees are solitary, meaning the female finds the nest site, lays the eggs, and provisions the nest with food for the young larvae. So they're kind of out there on their own, single mom raising the kids. And maybe in a ground nest, 80%, I think, of solitary bees nest in the ground. Others will be in stems of dried plants and holes in the tree, different things. And among the solitary bees, there are degrees of social behavior, but not nearly as complex as bumblebee or honeybee social behavior. You see, both kinds live in colonies with a queen and a cast of workers who have various duties to maintain the vigor of the colony. And the honeybee queen lives for several years, while the bumblebee queen and her colony last one season. So the bumblebees we are seeing now in the garden, most of them will be dead and gone by mid-July. But then the queen overwinters on the ground. We'll talk about that. The honeybee queen lives for several years. And honeybees store honey to feed themselves throughout the winter. Bumblebees don't need to do that since they don't live through the winter. So they really don't make much honey. And here I'm going to just mention briefly that there's a lot more research now showing that honeybees have an impact on native bees, not a positive impact. That they are, their numbers are so great that they can kind of dominate different habitats. And as an example, in January, when manzanita is blooming, where we are in the canyon, you'll see, that's what bumblebees will come to. The queen wakes up, she'll go to manzanitas early. But that is when some of the apiaries bring in their hives, sort of getting ready for the move in pollen orchards. So within 2 miles of our house, the 60 beehives. Each one of those can have 1,000 bees or 10,000. So you multiply that number, putting them out there in the wild scape, visiting manzanita flowers, makes it a little harder for the bumblebees, who tend to be kind of shy. Queens seem to be a little bit shy. So there's more info coming out all the time. There's more research on that. That's something to be aware of. That raising honeybees is not a positive thing for our native bees. So why should we care about bumblebees? We should care about them not just because they are buzzing, colorful, cute. And for me, they are a seasonal presence in the garden, and not unlike a lot of the birds that are in our canyon. The spring is now the robins and the wrens start singing in the morning, and then we know it's springtime. The yellow-breasted chat will start singing any day now along the creek, and we know summer is coming. And that's how it is with the bumblebees for me, is when I see a queen in January, February come out, get excited. We're a new season, bumblebees are coming out. And then in July, with a carpenter getting, now you got a mosquito under your left ear. Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Carpenter.
Carpenter, okay. So, now you're distracting. So bumblebees, and then in July, we have this starting with maybe one queen and then grow and grow and grow. And then July, by 1st of August, the garden's silent. The robins have stopped singing in the morning, the wrens have stopped, the chat has stopped, there are no bumblebees. So the transition in a garden is interesting and I pay attention to it. And so, let me go back. But we should care about them because they're critically important pollinators for our native food. Go. Speaking of word, probably a male perfectly be. So a keystone species. So bumblebees are considered a keystone species because they play a critical role in their ecosystems. Without their presence at a biologically significant level, plants dependent on their pollination services will not thrive. Bumblebees are excellent pollinators and demonstrate that all throughout this talk. Necessary for native wildflower reproduction, which then ensures seed and fruit set that will feed wildlife as diverse as songbirds and bears. So they are key up and I won't say more than demonstrate that. Another aspect of bumblebees important is their ability to pollinate plants across distances, and this in turn helps with creating genetic diversity within plant species and population, which is so important in these times of dramatic climate change and biodiversity. So why are they such good pollinators? In each of these I'm going to reference later. And lots of hair to pick up pollen, though you don't really see a bumblebee covered with pollen. Sometimes you'll see that more with honeybees. They collect the pollen and they put it on their corbicula, their hind leg. You can see that. But they clean off the pollen so quickly that it doesn't really stay on their hairs. Their ability to fly and visit flowers in cooler weather, talk more about that, but that's critical. They live in many types of habitats. We've seen them on the beach at Point Reyes. We've seen them in Colorado, whatever the suburbs, 11,000 feet, 11,005, seen bumblebees up there. And they are generalists, visiting many types of flowers. However, individuals show a high degree of flower constancy, which means that makes the flower happy. That when it's blooming, the bumblebee or anything, any pollinator comes to visit it, they prefer it if they leave pollen from the same species. A columbine flower isn't going to do anything with flower from a stir, something like that. So flower constancy is when the bees are kind of focused on one species, partly for efficiency of collecting pollen and nectar. We'll talk more about that. And perhaps most importantly, they're collecting pollen and nectar for a community, meaning they visit a lot. They are busy, they are working hard all the time. And this little video just gives you an example. Pipeline swallowtail there. There's a couple species of bees in this, and I get going. They stay on a flower on this particular salvia for maybe a second, getting what nectar they can, moving. I mean, they are working hard. But just notice how quickly they go from flower to flower. A lot of those happen to be male bees, some of them. And then this one here shows kind of flower constancy. This is a meadow in the Coast Range, Mount Lynn, South of Olduvai Peak, Square Lake. Beautiful spot for wildflowers, amazing diversity of flowers. Yet here on this video, this is coyote mint, Monardella. This is flower constancy. They are just going to this Monardella. There are hundreds of bees, bumblebees in there. And they're all the same species. They're all a yellow-faced bumblebee, but kind of laying in that meadow with all this buzzing around is kind of magical. But flower constancy, visiting one kind of flower makes that flower very happy, that species. So you're familiar, bumblebees can have bands. They can be different colors of yellow and black. They can have orange. They can be kind of whitish. And then here is their corbicula. And this is where female worker bees will pack the pollen mixed with a little bit of nectar to take back to the nest. That's really all. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and banded segments. And males, there will be 7. And this just gives you, this is a bunch of different species of bumblebees, but you can just sort of look through there and see the different patterns. You know, you can have black, yellow, 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 black. You can have orange. You can have, yeah, it's kind of in this, and it makes it very kind of difficult to identify. This is what they call kind of cartoon schematic. This is a particular species, doesn't matter what it is, but just notice the queens are on the top. And you can see the variety of banding in just the queens. The worker, the same thing. Sometimes a lot of yellow, sometimes a lot of black. Male bees, they're different yet. So it's not easy to always identify by the banding. Tongue length, bumblebees are categorized by the length of their tongues, short, medium, long, you know, kind of all relative. But what this does, it sort of dictates what flowers they visit sometimes. So a long-tongued bee can kind of get in a long corolla to reach the nectar, whereas a short-tongued bee can't do that. I prefer another flower without the long corolla. It's one reason why bumblebees of different species can share the same habitat, because they're visiting different flowers. And that's what I notice in my garden all the time. Sometimes there's one species on this plant. Sometimes there's a different one here. Sometimes they overlap. But it can vary as to the tongue length. So meadows are just a great place to see bumblebees. This is a meadow up at Mount Ashland. And I like to think of this as just a snapshot in time. This is July. For 2 to 3 hours, Jennifer and I were up there and we walked through the meadow to kind of note how many bumblebees or what flowers they were visiting. This is just a very brief list. They were visiting Aconitum. They were visiting Agaspity, horsemint, asters, buckwheats, holland, Helenium, sneezeweed, lupin, monodella, coyote mint, orthocarpus, penstemon, and a sedalcia. And we saw more. But that's just a couple hours on a July day that bumblebees are pollinating all these flowers. So you extrapolate that into a whole season, starting in a mountain meadow like that might start in June, flowering going through September, hundreds of different kinds of flowers. And a lot of them are dependent on bumblebees. By no means, I mean, there are a lot of solitary bees, there are a lot of flies that are great pollinators, a lot of butterflies, there's hummingbirds, and beetles. There are a lot of different pollinators, but bumblebees really are generalists. There's a lot of different flowers. And they are, what I find intriguing about them is they show an intelligence of learning the flowers, how to get into a flower, how to best get nectar and pollen. And the penstemon here is kind of a good example. That up in the upper left, you see this one has punctured a hole at the end of the corolla to get nectar. So it's saying, okay, that's what carpenter bees do all the time. If you're growing any salvias, you will see carpenter bees at the base of the flower. And they punch in a little hole, get the nectar, bypassing all that difficult stuff. So that bumblebee said, okay, I'll try this. Maybe it learned it from a carpenter bee. Maybe it learned it from a fellow sister bee. And then this one here says, well, I find going in upside down better. I can get in there and I can get the nectar. And so they, on these particular pincers in my home garden, they would do different things. And so bumblebees are, there's an intelligence to them that I find intriguing. So I said they have the ability to live in cold climates. And so they have a method, a couple methods really, but one in particular. They have to maintain an interior body temperature of 87 degrees. So they have to be warm inside. And they do that by shivering, vibrating their thoracic muscle. They decouple it from the wings, so they have this little vibration thing going on, keep them warm. And here, this is at 30 degrees. You're not going to see this very often. You're not going to see bumblebees flying at 30 degrees. This is a manzanita up by our gate, and going for a walk, you might hear buzzing. Oh, that's weird. It's awfully cold. And then sure enough, there's bumblebee inside there. But I haven't got it. So I have very scientific and put up the thermometer. The next morning, there is this poor little bumblebee kind of all shriveled out and fold, and felt sorry for it, kind of put my hand, put it in my pocket, walked down the road, came back, just fine. Not a problem. However, a few nights later, we had a little bit of rain in the evening, and then it froze. And that was too much for these bumblebees. And these, by the way, are probably male bumblebees, because males do not go back into the nest ever, or rarely. So they're out on their own. Females can go back in the nest, be with their sisters, stick in the queen, stay warm. The males are out there. Sometimes it just gets too cold. So another reason they are such good pollinators is they have the ability to sonicate or use buzz pollination. That is where they can grab a flower. And again, the same thing with the thoracic wings. They can decouple them from the wings, or thoracic muscles, and vibrate the flower. And I have a couple of videos. And then oftentimes the flowers that they do sonicate have a higher percentage of protein in the pollen. Oftentimes they don't have nectar, they just have pollen. And so the flower is trying to make it worthwhile for the specialist in a way to collect pollen. Bumblebees are not the only bees that do this. There are a lot of native bees that do it. Honeybees do not do that. They cannot sonicate. So here's a video. Here's an out of focus bee. She's going to kind of fly over here. She'll come into focus. I want you to kind of watch the shadow of her wing. And you can see her vibrating as she's holding onto the flower. Right in there. So look at the shadow.
No.
Yeah, she has a load of pollen. Yeah. So she's, loosening the pollen up inside the flower, comes down, lands on her hairs, and then she is just cleaning up at the same time. And on this one, this is Rose back east in Virginia. And it's interesting to see the bumblebees were sonicating here. The pollen is all right there, but what it's doing is kind of breaking up the clumps of the pollen and kind of vibrating it, separating it is how I see it to collect it. And then I put it in slow motion and you can see. But again, that ability of bumblebees to kind of figure out some of it. They have some tools at hand like this. And she's really working that flower. But the best video of all is not taken by me. This is director from the Maine Coastal Botanic Garden. If any of you go to Maine, It is a phenomenal botanic garden. You know, but they kept telling him, go out in the garden. The gentians are blooming and you'll see the bumblebees visiting the gentians. And I never did. And this shows you again their intelligence, their fortitude, and to work its way into that flower takes a lot of effort. Vibration. So she's using sonication to break up the pollen. And then when she comes out, she's covered and then she cleans it up immediately.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there's probably flower constancy with this. Once she's figured that out, then she will visit. And it must be worth it because that's a lot of effort.
Like, wait a minute, then you. Nope.
Yeah. They clean themselves, but that's just a great. So sonication, keeping themselves warm, a number of things why they are such great pollinators. So the goal of the colony is to produce as many new queens as possible. Late winter, early spring, a mated queen emerges from hibernation in search for a nest site. So a queen bee will live most of its life solitary, underground. We may have some melanopigus that ends the season early, may have queens in early June that might just hibernate late till January. Once suitable nest has been located, she makes a brood pod for nectar storage, lays her eggs on the mouth of the pod. So the queen finds a suitable spot. And this time of year, we saw some the other day at home, you see a bumblebee cruising the ground this high, it's going back and forth through the grass. She's looking for potential nests, which means a little hole in the ground, maybe an old mouse nest. It's incredible just to think what she is going through. So she lays her eggs on the mass of pollen and then she sits on them like a mama bird. He just kind of covers them up, keeps them warm. She may be doing this in February, March, April, May. This depends on the species. And in early spring, it's cold. So she really has to stay there. She'll go out and get nectar and pollen for herself. Oops. Again, first batch of eggs hatches. They already 2 weeks. Of course, pupate for another 2 weeks. The resulting adult bees are female worker bees. And then at some point, she says, okay, I have enough workers. I can just stay here. And she doesn't have to go out and collect pollen nectar. She just lays the eggs. She stays in the nest. Some point in the season, depending on the species, the queen lays unfertilized eggs, which become adult males. And that seems to vary species to species. Some of them start in, I'll see males in late May, June, sometimes not until late July. New queens are produced late in the season. Again, there's some decision made by the queen. There's pheromones, something happening. They're not really clear on how she determines who's going to be a queen. And then how many there are, I don't know. Some are just a few, maybe a colony might make a dozen queens. I don't think there's a lot of information. So I kind of said this, they mostly nest underground, utilizing pre-existing holes, such as an old mouse nest, or like in the Rockies, they nest on top of the ground, like in little grass, just mounds and kind of burrow down in there. Some, such as melanopigus, might nest in tree cavities. We had one that's kind of going in and out of a tree cavity, but never developed into a nest. A few years back, my house is up here, slope, and there was a nest right there that, living in fire country, I spent a number of hours, cutting grass, a lot of it. And, that's how I found a few nests, and doing this, and all of a sudden, some bumblebees come up and kind of freak out and worried and disturb them, but so far they've continued. And so it was exciting to have these first nests, and I put some wire around it, just keep skunks out, because they actually dug up other nests nearby. Skunks love bumblebees. And it was really exciting to watch a new worker come out of the nest, a new female worker bee. She has to map where this nest is, because she may be collecting pollen 100 yards away, quarter mile away. She has to be able to find her way back. And so I was really fortunate one day to see a couple times, this is how they do it, just kind of close in, a little bigger, taking the bigger things, the trees, take some houses, some point. That's just fascinating. That is a whole nest size of maybe a softball that I dug up in October after that nest finished. This is a male Bombus californicus or fervidus coming out of the nest for the first and only time since he won't go back. He's just kind of crawling through the grass, the dry grass, getting up, looking around, big wide world, and then took off. But exciting. So this year, early on, I was noticing we have a lot of Melanopigus, which is a small bumblebee. The banding is not real distinct, has long hairs. Tell Jennifer people about. And then 2 weeks ago, maybe Jennifer was out weeding behind her house, saw some strange activity with dryer. And the dryer is off. Describe it to yourself.
Well, it kind of, I was like, what are those bees doing? And the dryer was on, but you don't use it very often, so we're using it that day. And the bees will go up and then go down and then go up. They look like little kids playing in water slides. That's what I looked at. So funny. And then I went, it's funny that they're trying to go home. Like it all of a sudden dawned on me that their nest was inside, and I ran and turned the dryer.
Oh, no.
So we're not drying clothes. That's
And you know,
we don't need. Well, if the males are hatched and leave the nest, do the newly hatched queens go out looking for a mate? Yes, I'll get to that. Oh, that's a little bit, but yes, or vice versa. Then yeah, the males are. So anyway, this is, and I want to show you this video. So this is, they call them rookies, and there's a new one coming out, and you can see how she is mapping, and then ended up sort of flying right in front of me, sort of mapping me and some facial recognition or something. And but it's really amazing though to think that they can leave this nest and find their way back. It comes back, says, okay, yeah, that's a weird house. Mapping the wall over there, going around, going further out, flew right past me. It doesn't take long, but again, that's close, bigger. And sometimes they come back in and I think they don't quite get it. Some of them have to do that on the way back in. Because I'm spending a lot of time watching this. They nest in a variety of places. Again, they are adaptable. They are resilient. And again, I was cutting grass and around this lawnmower, and I can push it with my foot to cut the grass, and bumblebees came out. And they weren't aggressive, but they let me know that, hey, so I put the lawnmower back where it was, and I was worried I disturbed them, but no, they kept going. The bees coming in and out. However, 2 mornings later, I looked down below. Where's my lawnmower? Something had tipped it over the bear. Pretty sure it's a bear. And so everything was in just disarray, and the bumblebees, larvae, and I had my camera, but I was too just sort of, so it's kind of out of focus, but a lot of chaos going on. So all I could do was I kind of pushed it back in under the mower, the best I could, put the mower back, and created a fortress. No bears are going to come back. No way they could have got through it. There's rebar in there, but the thing is, I don't think the bear would have. The reward wasn't that great, and I bet that bear got stuck quite a bit. So they nest in different places, and this is almost Van Dyke. She's going under the lawnmowers. She has a load of pollen there. Male bumblebees produce various times depending on the species. Number of males vary significantly. They rarely, if ever, return to the nest. They hang out on flowers, drink nectar, but they are still really good pollinators because when I'm watching them, I mean, they were in that first video, bees visiting flowers. A lot of those are males. Why they visit so many flowers? I mean, you can only bring so much nectar a day. So not bringing it back to the nest. That's a mystery. But their ultimate purpose is to make the queen. And Bombus van Dyke is a very photogenic, kind of charismatic. It's not a big bumblebee, but the males, you see them, and unlike any other bumblebee. So I take a lot of pictures of them. These are male Moskowitz, and they really like stackings, the lamb's ears that one year, and we counted up to 130 sleeping bees. Just in kind of a small area, you'll see, a stem with a dozen, another dozen, 5. You can see how we entertain ourselves.
What's that?
Stackies, lamb's ear, has a big silver fuzzy leaf and a spike, and it kind of seems it's not a native, but. And then later in July, this is male crunchy eye, which is one of the rare endangered ones. I'll talk about them. But he's a very charismatic, handsome bee, big eyes, and he would come down and hang out on this Agostiki flower every morning about 9:30. And so I think he was just kind of waiting for a queen. He would be there for an hour and a half and then take off. And did that for about 10 days. And so this is a male Moskowitz mating the female. And you can see she's much larger. So they're, the hive, the colony is trying to get this overlap, having enough males, enough queens, because she has to get mated that season. And then she'll go underground, hibernate, and then start her colony the next spring. So sad news for bumblebees. Larming several species bumblebees that were once very common. Here they've disappeared, such as the rusty patch bumblebee, first bumblebee be put on the federal endangered species list, and the western bumblebee, which was once seen throughout the West, but is now rarely found. I'm going to talk a little more about that. And you wonder why. Well, you fly, get on the airplane and look out the window and think, how does anything survive? Just all the farmland and all the natural areas. So that's tough. Pesticide use is, you all know about that. Just support organic farming the best you can and don't use any pesticides in your garden. There's always another way. Pathogens, I'll talk more about that. Climate change can cause a mismatch of flowering times and the phenology of bumblebees. Things are changing, and bumblebees are resilient. So I do have hope that they do adapt. So June 19, 2019, California Fishing Game Commission voted 3-1. I'm kind of just that listing 4 species, subspecies, well, no, species of bumblebee was warranted under the California Endangered Species Act. B. Caracci along to Franklin's, which is probably extinct. Sutcliffe cuckoo bumblebee, also probably extinct. And the western bumblebee, of which there are a few. So they voted yes. Well, there's a nice list of people, organizations appealed that by, because of course that inhibits their profit loss. And so it was overturned, and so they won. But then the Xerces Society, they appealed the higher court, I guess, and won. So those 4 bumblebees are in the California endangered species. And thanks for Xerces, who does a lot of the work. So Bombus occidentalis, the western bumblebee, was very common in the West, very common in California. They've got the most common bumblebee in the top 3. Now you rarely see it. We've been lucky, we've found some in Plymouth County that we can kind of monitor every year, go up. So the reason for that, well, let's see. Let me go back. So the reason for this is that bumblebees are really good pollinators. We talked about that. They're very good pollinators for certain agricultural crops. And they are used as pollinators in big greenhouses. We were talking commercial 50-acre greenhouses down in Arizona that are growing tomatoes and peppers, other watermelons, a whole variety of crops. And so the bumblebees were raised in labs, and the queens were sent out around the world. Millions of them were sent out for pollination use in agriculture. Bombus occidentalis is one. Part of this was determined by who's easy to raise in a lab and who behaves themselves and does what we would like and produces enough workers. So they were taken and they were in Europe, all over the world. And then there was a decline in Europe as they got maybe what is Nosema virus or fungal something that was attacking the commercial bees. Well, this got back to California and decimated the wild population. And that is probably something that happened with the Franklin's honeybee or bumblebee because it is closely related genetically to the occidentalis. So they're struggling, but we have hopes. Morrisonii is another one that is on the, what would you say, Michelle, on the big watch. Morrisonii?
They are concerned about horizontal.
Yeah, that is one. Michelle's with ambassador for Xerces Society. I was going to say that. Yeah, she chatted with her about Xerces. And this is one that we came up not on my property, but in our canyon just up the road, out of the blue. Never seen this one before. On my sister's property, this is on the native plant stacking. She called me up one day and said I had a really yellow bump. Rolled my eyes and said, sure. But yeah, there's this, and this is another just beautiful bump. So speaking of Xerces Society, they have put together what they call the California Bumblebee Atlas, but they also have Pacific Northwest Bumblebee Atlas. I think they have them in 22 states, something like that. And it's using community scientists, not that's what I was looking for. And so they are training them, and myself included, Michelle included, to go out in the field and do surveys and collect bees. And you are not collecting bees, you're not we are collecting photographs of bees. A lot of it is in having good photography of bees. So bumblebee survey takes exactly 45 people minutes. If you have 2 people, 22 now. 1 hectare, and we catch the bumblebee in net, put in the vial, put the vial on ice. They can be on the ice for over an hour, 2 hours. And the key is then when they're cool and slow down, not moving, you can photograph really well. And so this is really helping to gather more information about where the bumblebees are. This is up near top. You can see the ice. We take photographs. And they're, just barely moving, and then they start moving a little bit, and then before you know it, you can take off. Shell and I did a survey this morning at Vina Monastery. It's great fun. So I did 4 different species. And this is just one Jennifer and I did Dismal Swamp. I just put the it's in northeastern California. You could throw a stone in the morning.
Yeah, right before,
Right in the morning.
on a fork, dude.
Yeah, it's really a beautiful spot, and it's swampy. A lot of mosquitoes, but had a lot of bees, and we had, this is just kind of a sampling of some of the bees. You can see the corbicula, pollen. Maybe that one's a male. So strategies to support bumblebees. Like I say, they're resourceful, adaptable, experimental, plant a variety of species in different plant families. Pay attention to which ones the bees visit and plant more of that the next year. I find it kind of hard to just tell somebody, yes, plant this and that'll be perfect. Sometimes it depends on what else you have blooming, what else is blooming in the neighborhood. Maybe a plant they love at my place, and now it's not worth it. We have better to visit. So it's not a science. But there are bee plants that we know are good. So plant for spring, summer, and fall, plant in mass. I mean, they like having, if there's a plant they like that flower constancy. They can be more efficient, they collect nectar and pollen and bring it back, and that's what they like. So plant in mass. Research recommended plants. Michelle has a list of plants for the Sacramento Valley. Just pay attention. And again, no pesticides. And then do not keep your gardens too tight. You don't know where they're going. They could nest in an old lawnmower, they could nest or under a log. Leave some logs, leave some rocks. I mean, you don't know. But if it's a low and blue garden, you do know. They're not going to miss. There's a number of studies showing urban landscapes can support significant numbers of pollinators. They're across the country. There are a lot of studies proving that. So as gardeners, we can relinquish control to having a tidy garden. I know it's really hard to do. Want to get in and cut everything back in January or February because it's messy. So my thing is maybe don't cut everything. Help your OCD, cut a few things back. But don't cut everything because the bees, solitary bees can be nesting in stems. Bumblebees can be down at the base of a plant underground. Natural processes, it's tidy. Plant more flowers. Pay attention to what you plant. Don't believe all the marketing labels. Nurseries try to make money. They have to make money. Wholesale nurseries have to make money. And sometimes it's easy to slap on good for pollinators. Just don't believe that. Try it, but think of your garden as a meadow full of life, middle of the urban landscape. So early flowering plants critical because that queen has been underground for 6-7 months, hasn't had anything to eat. She has to come out find the nest site, start a colony, takes a lot of energy. So that's why early flowering things are really important. Manzanitas are great, red bud, silverleaf lupin, ceanothus, barberry, California poppies. There's more. Later spring plants, salvia mellifera, black sage, various Mediterranean salvias. I'm kind of heavy on the salvias because I'm sort of passionate about salvias. But they are very good for bumblebees. Phacelia is really good for bumblebees. So it was interesting at the monastery. They had a row of 150 feet by 20 feet of Phacelia. You didn't see any bumblebees. And usually you always do. So that was kind of a mystery. Maybe another day. Experience on a couple. So it just kind of, yeah, varies. But that one was always recommended.
Love variety.
Yes. Larkspur is really good. We'll hype up one of my favorite plants, the Gostiki blue boa. They really like that. White sage, Cleveland sage. Gostiki blue boa. Lavenders are good. Stackies, a lot of native salvias are just really great. That would be nice, but I'm not counting on a god or a goddess to save the bumblebees. Or us as gardeners to do what we can. Any questions?
How big is the range usually?
You mean how an individual bee?
Yeah.
They say, maybe a mile, probably California bumblebees extra. And maybe a little bit more, maybe less, it depends.
Why didn't this work?
Sorry to bring that in.
Yeah, it's been sitting in the front yard for 3 years.
I don't know, I'm not gonna,
It's
I'm
perfectly empty.
that Vicky Michelle might have, you ask her afterwards, you finish your question.
I didn't see the teddy bear pictures.
Because it's not a,
Oh, it's not.
ask Jared, he knows.
Where do I go? Oh. Looks like Carpenter Bee.
It's big, it's fuzzy.
So I just saw one of those 2 days ago laying in my hammock in my backyard. I'm like, what the heck is that? It must be probably, I can't wait to ask John. It's here on Monday. And Brendan informed me it is the female. Dang it, it is the male. Someone else told me the opposite. It is the male to this color.
Family, we have a number of different species, we have a foothill carpenter.
It's beautiful.
Oh,
So it's looking,
it probably is already together, they just come and go, and they do go back in the nest.
oh,
We have a million partners. Touch it, and if you walk through this part, keep your mouth closed. They are just everywhere. Yeah, so Valley Carpenter male.
males.
Those carpenter bees, they do sting.
Well, in bumblebees, females stay. Males do not stay. So the fuzzy, you can pick him up. You can try and hold him and gently, but they are strong. Just, yeah.
Do you ever feel it vibrate?
In the diagram, so it did look like a pretty predominant stinger. Now, is it like a honeybee that they sting you and it gets pulled out?
Think so. Yeah, and it's only the females. I've never been stung, even when I'm pushing nests back together. Photographing right in their face.
They don't have
One of
that.
these days,
You said with the queen comes out of hibernation and looking for a nest and nest on some pollen. Where does the pollen come from? Because everybody inactive? Like,
well, she comes out when there are sunflowers. Because she needs some pollen, she needs some nectar.
so she goes and gets the pollen.
She goes and gets the
and then-
pollen and she'll make a couple repeated trips, kind of coming back and they say. One study said a queen would visit 6,000 flowers a day. When she was building her store Starting to call. So, and you know, the queens in this time of year, when I see them, they just let me be. They're very temperamental and they want to get on.
And that's being created,
No. No, I'm always looking.
but they're
Flying low, and I'll watch them go into a hole and just kind of wait for a while and then they come back out again. Yeah, so I haven't, but that would be great fun.
that one under your lawnmower, it looked like it was in some grass that was attached to the blades.
It was up inside, but there wasn't much grass. There was dried grass underneath. But they had moved up somehow under, around the blade.
And are they using are they creating like a material to create?
Yeah, they make kind of a waxy material. Yes, and they make their little. I know it, yeah, the brood pods. And to encase the larvae.
Kind of like a wasp makes a casing.
Maybe, I'm not sure. But
So
if
that
I did see,
picture, that picture with all the little, I guess that was for larva attached.
Yeah.
They're all cooked together.
well, yeah, bumblebee, their nests, to my mind, seem very casual. I mean, the one that I dug up two the one year when they were finished and. Well, they were kind of messy, like the one under the lawnmower. I mean, the bear had disturbed it, but. I don't think there is any great organization. It's not like you look at a feral honeybee hanging on a tree and it is, you know, here. Yeah, very symmetrical. Honey bear, bumblebees.
Have you seen many in the park down here?
Yes, I've been in the park.
These need a little brown for nesting, or maybe you leave some of your garden open.
Well, by open, I mean, if you leave that kind of grassy area that's kind of natural, like what do you mean open? They're not gonna nest just in bare group. No, it's now, these solitary bees like bare, ground. They don't like a lot of mulch. They don't like the big wood chips, they like bare, sometimes inhospitable looking soil. So the solitary bees, of which there are lots, but the bumblebee is kind of used like an old mouse nest. Or one of these nested under a piece of 2x6 and then underneath. And maybe they're in the mouse prior. They use what they find, they're bare ground. But for solitary bees, yeah. Great questions.
I have one about the bunching of the plants. Can that be integrated with others? Like, do you really mean like right up next to each other, or could it be somewhat like in the same general area of the garden, but spread out, others integrated?
Yeah.
What's a better
it's good-
approach?
It's good, you know, at least for some of them to plant close. I mean, you know, 3 or 5. See, one there, you know, so you end up, you know, with a mass, and then you can repeat that. You don't have to say you're planting Phacelia. You can do, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 there. They like, you know, that repetition doesn't have to all be together, but it's, yeah, I think it's pretty much proven that it works better. They're not just mixed up. Yeah, great question. Thank you. Good stuff.
Thank you.
All right, thanks so much, Bob.